Hello and welcome to Ditch Witch Diaries. We are back again talking about trees, and this time our lovely Raven is going to talk about a tree that I've been singing a song about all morning.
Been singing a song about it?
Yes.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So you can say what it is, and then I'll sing a little ditty I've been singing.
Okay, let's see. Oh, that's what I wanted. Okay, so we are doing apple tree.
So the song is Don't sit under the apple tree with anyone else but me. Anyone else but me. Anyone else but
Mm.
me. No, 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 don't sit under the apple tree. Anyway, yeah. I've been singing it all morning thinking about the apple tree we're going to talk about today.
How funny. Yeah, I don't know any like apple tree songs actually, but we will talk about some poems.
I think there's another one
So,
too. I've been trying, it's in the back of my head. It's stuck in the back recesses
mm,
of my head. That there is another apple tree song.
mm,
Um, anyway, go ahead.
hmm. Okay. So apple trees. So we did cover apple a while ago, long time ago actually.
Put a link to
Oh,
it above.
what's that?
I'll
Oh
put
yeah,
a
link
link.
above. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll link to it.
But we I'm adding new info. First of all, I forgotten that we had covered it, so I'm doing it again. But I was looking through it and I have a lot more information. So
Okay.
apple tree. Here's our little apple.
Ooh.
And then, all right, so it is the I always butcher this. Rosaceae. It's the rose tree or the rose family.
Uh-huh.
So it includes roses, pears, cherries, plums, hawthorns, rowan, but lots and lots and lots of plants in the like rose family. The genus is Malus. Malus containing like what they're calling true apples and crab apples, which we'll talk about in a second. There are 30 to 55-ish species of Malus, depending on like how we are classifying like the hybrids and the wilds and stuff. Apples hybridize very easily, and so like classification can get kind of messy because there can be some type of hybrid that like doesn't have a name or two hybrids that have the same name. It's very messy, but there's about 30 to 55 estimated. And a quick note, most of the apples that we see in like grocery stores and stuff are all part of the same species. We'll talk about that next. And the different types of apple trees are called cultivators. So it's like if you think about dogs, right? There's one species of domestic dogs, which is the Canis lupus. But there's different breeds, but they're all part of the same species, which is like this dog, like domestic dog species. Um, so apples are kind of the same. There's like one kind of apple species that generates the apples that you know. The like the Granny Smith and the Red Delicious and the Cosmic and the Ambrosia, they're all part of the same species.
Yum.
So the that species is the domestic apple, the Malus domestica. This is like the eating apple. So Honeycrisp, Fiji, like all of these things are from the species Malus domestica. This is the apples that we eat. And then we have the European crab apple. This is like if you've ever seen a crab apple, they're really small, actually. They're pretty tart. And this species is native to Europe, kind of all over Europe, but Europe specifically. Then we have the sweet crab apple, which is called like the wild ancestor. This is native to Kazakhstan and like Asia. This is the wild ancestor of our like modern day apple. So this is kind of like the older, like had been around for longer. And then it had hybridized and which gave us our domestic species. And then we have the Japanese flowering crab apple, but you don't really eat the fruit on this. It's mostly just known for the flowers. They're like really beautiful flowers that we see.
Hence the floribunda.
Hence, yes, Floribunda.
That is floribunda.
Flora. It is pretty though. I mean, if you look at
It's
it.
beautiful. I know.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so funny because I feel like Japanese have like flowers that look, they're trees that look like,
Yeah, so like the
I feel
cherry
like that's common.
blossoms. I
Like,
mean,
I don't know how you got all those lovely trees, but
give us
Japanese have
some.
like a
Let
million
us
beautiful
share.
trees.
Um, so some genus characteristics. They're pretty small trees. They can get like to medium size, but as far as trees go, they're relatively small. They are deciduous. They can be like larger shrubs, but they do have pretty like spread out crowns. So the trunk doesn't get very like thick and wide, but the crown is pretty big. And as they age, their branches get like really twisted, and gnarled. Kind of reminds me of like the stereotypical like um witchy like fingers, right? Like all arthritic and like gnarled. Yeah. Um, so the flowers are pretty consistent across the genus. So flowers are, this is one of the easiest way to tell that it's an apple tree. The flowers always have five petals, always five petals. You can see this here, like one, two, three, four, five. And they're clustered. You can also kind of see this here. They all kind of branch off of the same little shoot. The buds are pink, but when they open, they can be like pink, they can be white, but the buds themselves are pink. And they have a lot of stamens, which are like these little things here in the center.
Nice.
And then the fruit. So we all know what an apple is. Well, I'm assuming we all know what an apple is, but something interesting. So all Malus species produce a palm. So the palm is the fruit. It's the apple. It's the crab apple or the apple, whatever's the palm. So the palm is the fruit formed partially by the flower base rather than the ovary. So I'll talk about this next, but it's kind of strange in the way that it forms. This fruit forms in a very different way from most other fruit. But we will see a central core with our seeds. So this is like our core with our seeds. We have the typical star at the bottom of the apple, which we'll look at pictures next. And the flesh typically is pretty like crisp and firm with a somewhat softer like inner flesh. So this is just a quick thing because I thought that it was interesting. But oops, most fruits. So we have the ovary of the flower becomes the fruit, and then those little ovules become the seeds. The ovary wall becomes the fleshy part. So think like peaches, cherries. Most of the flesh of the fruit is the ovary, right? It's the ovary wall. Like when you're eating a peach, you are eating the wall of the ovary. But
Wow.
in apples, it's different. The ovary becomes like the core. So if you cut an apple in half, you know that the seeds are in like this papery core. That's like the star. It's
Yeah.
like papery. That's the ovary. So we don't actually, most of us, eat the actual ovary of the fruit, which is very different from most other fruits. So the fleshy edible part is like the flower base, essentially. So the crunchy flesh that you eat is like enlarged, swollen flower tissue. You're just eating like the developed part of the flower, and we don't eat the ovary for the most part, which I thought was really interesting.
That is.
Yeah, pretty strange. So some other names for the tree of Avalon, silver brow tree, tree of immortality, paradise tree, tree of love, and then names for the fruit itself, fruit of the otherworld, silver fruit, winter fruit, wisdom fruit, fairy fruit. Okay, so history and lore, we're gonna stick here for a minute. So, weird, fascinating fact about apples. If you plant a seed, like you buy a Honeycrisp apple, you plant the seed, it's not gonna grow into a Honeycrisp tree. It doesn't reproduce true to seed because they like cross-pollinate so easily. So usually if you want to grow Honeycrisp apple, those are my favorite by the way, but if you want to grow like Honeycrisp apple, you have to propagate. So you have to take like a cutting of the branch, and then like essentially like plant it kind of. So it's just cloned continuation. So every Honeycrisp this is true of any type of apple, but every Honeycrisp apple you've ever had is from some part of the original Honeycrisp tree, which is pretty cool from like a lineage standpoint, I think.
Yep. Amazing.
So weird. Okay, so we have the Isle of Apple. So in Celtic and like I don't know how to say, I know that's like stemming from Arthur, but like
Arthurian. Arthurian.
Arthurian mythology. Avalon is like this mystical place called the Isle of Apples. And we think that the name comes from the Welsh word apfel, meaning apple. In German, it's similar to, I think in German, apfel is the same, but it's like APF,
Yeah.
apfel. So Avalon is believed to be like this hidden island of like healing and beauty and immortality where Arthur was taken from his final battle to like rest and recuperate. And then in Celtic symbolism, apples were associated with the otherworld, youth, wisdom, magic. And so apples are like root and apple trees are associated with paradise, rebirth, beauty, things like that.
So have you ever read the book, The Mists of Avalon?
Uh-uh.
So it's a rad book. I highly recommend
Hmm.
it. It's a great book.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Is it like like a I don't know how like a folklore based like fantasy kind of like the Odyssey, or is it just like a some like fantasy book that somebody just like wrote up?
It's based on the folklore.
Ah,
Yeah, and I don't
interesting.
know how closely it
Yeah, fair. Yeah.
goes, but it's based on Arthurian folklore.
Hmm.
It is
Interesting.
great. It is, I would highly recommend it. It's kind of an older book, and I feel like some people are going to say that they don't like it, which is fine. Everybody's got their opinion. But if you're a reader of fantasy, definitely check that out.
Hmm. Interesting. Okay. Very nice. So then we have the branch of apples. So in Irish mythology, apple branches often appear bearing like silver blossoms, which is why it's called like the silver fruit and the silver tree. Apple trees are said to produce enchanting music, and apple trees and apple fruit guide people to the other world. So it was believed that like a branch of apples was needed to like travel between the worlds. So sometimes people would be like buried with apple branches, or if somebody was going into some type of like trance-like state, they would use that. So then Irish Lamasnaba, I don't know, Irish names and words are so
Where do you see that?
rare.
Sod? Where?
Lamasnaba,
Oh, I don't know. Oh,
but yeah.
Blah. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe.
something like that. I don't know. And I know that the pronunciation of Irish words and names are not what they seem typically, but it's
Long.
a piece of, of apple gathering, often associated with Lusa. So it's like sometimes seen as
That Lusa? Is that how you say Lunasa?
Lusa, I don't know. I don't celebrate it, so I think that it's different. It's kind of like Samhain, how some people pronounce that one differently.
Yeah, but it's pronounced Samhain. So
Yeah.
even if you pronounce it wrong, so I would like to, how do
Well,
you,
I would think that it would be different from different locations, no? Like people might have different ways of pronouncing it if they're from different areas.
I know that Lu is like a god. So I
Yeah.
know it's not Lug, it's Lunas.
I
Let's see.
don't
How
know.
do you
So,
it's Lunasa.
yeah.
Lunasa is what it's said to be
Hmm.
in Gaelic.
Anyways,
Yeah.
the Lamasnaba is not the same,
Oh,
but sometimes they're often associated together. So they're kind of seen as like the harvesting aspect.
okay.
So in Irish Celtic traditions, it's a like harvest festival, celebrated the first fruits of the harvest, later became associated with apple gathering. So that Lunasa is like harvesting. That's what it's kind of known as like the big aspect, right? But later on, we kind of had this other thing come in because it was specifically for harvesting apples and like apple wood and apple fruits and stuff. And so the apples in Celtic tradition symbolized abundance, fertility, wisdom, transition into autumn, things like that. So then we have the Irish tale of Conley, which I guess is how you pronounce that. I looked that up, Conley, the Adventure of Conley. So This isn't the full story, but it says the story tells of Conley, the son of the High King of Ireland. One day, while standing with his father, Conley sees a mysterious, beautiful woman who no one else can fully perceive. She tells him she comes from a magical land across the sea, a timeless other world without death, sorrow, or aging. She invites Conley to join her there. Before leaving, she gives him a magical apple. Conley eats the apple for an entire month, but it never grows smaller, and the apple alone completely sustains him. During that time, he becomes increasingly withdrawn from the human world and longs for the mysterious woman and her realm. Finally, she returns in a crystal boat or like a glass boat and calls to him again. Conley climbs into the boat with her and they sail away across the sea to the other world, never to be seen again. So, this is part of the reason why we kind of see the association to the other world or like some type of way to like transition in between worlds, things like that. Then we have the apples of Iðunn. So this is Norse. In Norse mythology, the goddess Iðunn guarded magical apples that kept the gods youthful and immortal. The gods of Asgard had regularly eaten her apples to prevent themselves from aging. And then there was one, so there's a lot of stories with this like realm, but there's one where Loki is forced by a giant to lure her out of Asgard. The giant kidnaps her and takes both her and her apples away. Without the apples, the gods quickly become to grow old, weak, gray. Realizing Loki caused the problem, the gods force him to rescue her. Loki transforms into a falcon, flies into the giant stronghold, changes Iðunn into a nut so he can carry her and escapes back to Asgard with the giant pursuing him. Once Iðunn returns, the gods reign their youth by eating her apples again. So again, same ideas here: immortality, vitality, preservation of life, renewal, changing, things like that.
Yep.
Then we have the Garden of Hesperides. So we've talked about this one before, but golden apples are like from Gaia, the goddess of the earth. Gaia gives golden apples as a gift to Hera when Hera is married to Zeus. These apples grow on the tree of life in the Garden of Hesperides at the western realm of like the Greek world. Um, Hesperides are the daughters of, or let's see, yeah, are the daughters of Atlas and Hesperus. So Hercules, seeking help for the troubled he has endured, things like going crazy, seeks wisdom from the Oracle of Delphi. He is advised to offer his cousin, the king of Mycenae,
Nice.
12 years of service and must complete 12 tasks or labors as a type of community service. The 11th labor was to find the famed golden apples. He learns their location, and when it comes time to actually retrieve the apples, he actually sends Atlas, who returns successful. I talked about this in the last apple presentation. He basically tricks Atlas. Um, Atlas wants to keep the apples, figuring he did all the work, but he tricks him by agreeing, but then asks Atlas if he could hold the heavens for just a moment. Somehow the wisdom inherent in the apples eludes him. And then with Atlas busy carrying the weight of the world, he takes the apples and so that's how he tricks Atlas to get the apples and then tricks Atlas into letting him keep the apples. Then we have the Judgment of Paris. So, Greek mythology, the apple of discord was a golden apple that sparked the events leading to the Trojan War. During the divine wedding feast, the goddess Eris was not invited, and so in revenge, she threw a golden apple among the guests, inscribed with the words, "For the fairest." Three goddesses claimed the apple: Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite. And then to settle the dispute, the Trojan prince Paris was chosen to judge which goddess deserved the apple. Each goddess offered him a bribe. Hera promised power and kingship. Athena promised wisdom and victory. Aphrodite promised him the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen. Paris was awarded the apple, or he awarded the apple to Aphrodite. Helen was already married, and her eventual abduction and elopement with Paris led to the Trojan War. We have a couple more.
That's
So
okay.
then we
Go
have
ahead. I'm
Slavic.
excited. These are good.
Okay, good. Then we have Slavic folklore, so youth giving apples. In this story, an aging king begins to grow weak, ill, and sometimes blind, it's said. He learns some magical apples hidden in some enchanted garden, and these apples are said to be able to restore youth, health, and vitality. So he sends his sons, I believe that there were three. He sends his sons on a quest to retrieve them. The older two sons fail because they're arrogant, careless, or like one of them is tempted away from the path. The youngest son, who is often underestimated, succeeds with the help of magical animals, wise strangers, supernatural helpers. He must overcome the enchanted forest, bypass dangerous guardians, things like that. But he gets them, returns home, and the king's youth or like sight is restored. So a lot of times it's about like needing to go the distance to get the apple too is a big thing. Like having to put in the work to get like the benefit of the apple. Then we have Christian symbolism. Apples are strongly associated with Christian symbolism, especially like the story of Adam and Eve. Um, as we are probably all aware, Adam and Eve eat the forbidden fruit and the tree of knowledge from the tree of knowledge in the Garden of Eden, bringing about the fall of man and like the loss of innocence. But something to note that the Bible never says that the fruit was an apple. We just kind of assume. We think that it kind of comes from Latin wordplay because malleum means evil and malum is apple. And so we think that it was like almost like a mistranslation, almost. Okay, and then in Norse, we have some legends of Fro, the Norse fertility god who bestows fruitfulness, wins the giantess Gerda, daughter of Gymir. And so one of the stories told of Odin or potentially Fro is that he was able to father a child with Reyr by sending her a magical apple. Upon biting it, she gives birth. Um, the Teutonic Iðunn, goddess of eternal youth, beauty, and patroness of spring, protects the golden apples. Oh, I kind of already talked about this a little bit. But it's a very, very similar story for Odin and Fro because, like you mentioned in your last one, a lot of these stories are kind of used interchangeably, but it's the same concept.
But they were known for, they offered 11 golden apples. Like I think that last little part on their to win her.
Yeah. Um, oh yeah, allowing winter to reign supreme and last year round. Iðunn escapes, finds her magical apples, and feeds them to her friends so that spring can now return. Yeah. Um, what else? Okay. So then we have wassailing. So this is an English tradition. People go to apple trees during winter, this like winter ritual, and they actually sing to the tree. So on Christmas Eve, it said sometimes it's just like around Christmas Eve, but somewhere around that time, the farmer families and all of the laborers that work on the farm go out to the orchard after supper. Hot cakes are placed in like the insides of the oldest and best producing trees as like offerings. And then the laborers, the family drink cider, and then they say, here's to thee, old apple tree, whence thou mayst bud and whence thou mayst blow, hats full, cups full, bushel, bags full, and my pockets full too, huzzah. They repeat this three times. They take roasted apples, put it in the cider, drink it, and then they toss the rest of the cider like at the trees. So this is all like an honoring of the tree, the hot cakes, especially for the best producing trees, but all of the producing trees would get like this offering of cider. But if there were trees that did not produce that year, then they did not get the singing and the cider offerings. But if you forgot to do this or don't do this to trees that were producing, then they would stop producing, it said. Okay, so then we have some art. So Robert Frost, a very well-known poet, uh, created this one called After Apple Picking. So I'll read it, but it's a little long.
Okay.
But it's like
Pros.
associated with, huh?
Pros. I
Prose,
like
yeah.
pros.
Yeah. Exhaustion, mortality, dreams. So it says, hold on, let me move this so I can actually kind of see. My long two-pointed ladder sticking through a tree towards heaven still, and there's a barrel that I don't fill. Beside it, and there may be two or three apples I didn't pick upon some burrow. But I am done with apple picking now. Essence of winter, sleep is on the night, the scent of apples I am drowsing off. I cannot rub the strangeness from my sight. I got from looking through a pane of glass. I skimmed this morning from the drinking trough. I can't see it because that thing is in the way. Something. Oh, there you go.
In
And
the
it's
world
the
of
world of
furry
pouring
grass.
glass. It melted and I let it fall and break. But I was well, upon my way to sleep before it fell, and I could tell what form my dreaming was about to take. Magnified apples appear and disappear, stem end and blossom end, and every fleck of russet showing clear. My instep arch not only keeps the ache, it keeps the pressure of a ladder round. I feel the ladder sway as the boughs bend, and I keep hearing from the cellar bin the rumbling sound of load on load of apples coming in. For I have had too much of apple picking. I am overtired of the great harvest I myself desired. There were 10,000 fruit to touch, cherish in hand, lift down, and not let fall for all that struck the earth, no matter if it bruised or spiked with stubble, went surely to the cider apple heap, as of no worth. One can see what will trouble this sleep of mine, whatever sleep it is, where he got none. The woodchuck could say whether it's like his long sleep, as I describe its coming on, or just some human sleep.
That's amazing.
Robert Frost. And then we have another one from William Blake. So he often used like orchard and fruit imagery symbolically, but especially apple. So the most famously was called a poison tree, where an apple becomes a symbol of like resentment. So it says, I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning with my tears. And I sunned it with smiles and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into my garden stole when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath a tree.
Right.
And then we have the famous Son of Man painting, probably one of the most famous Apple paintings that we have. Surrealist. Is believed to suggest things like hidden identity, concealed truth, things like that. And then lots of apple blossoms and paintings. I'll show you a picture of this on the next slide. But apple blossoms were like big subjects for impressionists, all kinds of like things because it's believed that they depicted fleeting beauty, spring, feminine renewal. And so we can see pictures like this here.
Oh, wow.
No, I really like this one actually. I mean, how do you not like Monet? But still, I really like this one. So lots of apple in depictions. And then, of course, we have the famous Snow White
I'm
apple.
so
Probably,
happy you talked about it. I was like, is she going to talk about
yeah.
lovely Snow
The
White?
apple. So probably the most famous magical apple in like Western storytelling. And so I actually have the script from the original like Brothers Grimm story, just a little snippet about the apple. It's very similar actually to our like Disney Snow White story, but
Okay.
so essentially the queen is talking to the mirror, right? And the mirror or the queen says like, "Who's the fairest?" And the mirror answered, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but Snow White beyond the mountains with the seven dwarfs is still 1,000 times fairer than you." When the queen heard the mirror saying this, she shook and trembled with anger. "Snow White shall die," she shouted, "if it costs me my life." Then she went into her most secret room. No one else was allowed inside, and she made a poisoned apple. From the outside, it was beautiful, white with red cheeks, and anyone who saw it would want it. But anyone who might eat a little piece of it would die. Then, coloring her face, she disguised herself as a peasant woman and thus went across the 7 mountains to the 7 dwarves. She knocked on the door. Snow White struck her head out in the window and said, I am not allowed to let anyone in. The dwarves have forbidden me to do so. That is all right with me, answered the peasant woman. I'll easily get rid of my apples. Here, I'll give you one of them. No, said Snow White, I cannot accept anything. Are you afraid of poison? Asked the old woman. Look, I'll cut the apple in two. You eat the red half, and I shall eat the white half. Now the apple had been so artfully made that only the red half was poisoned. Snow White longed for the beautiful apple, and when she saw the peasant woman was eating part of it, she could no longer resist, and she stuck her hand out and took the poisoned half. She barely had a bite in her mouth when she fell to the ground dead. The queen looked at her with gruesome stare, laughed loudly, and said, White as snow, red as blood, black as ebony wood. This time the dwarfs cannot, I think, save you
Uh,
or something.
not
Oh,
wait.
awaken you. Awaken you. So that is the famous Snow White apple.
I love that.
I know, I used to love Snow White, really. Okay, so moving on from our lore, we have the medicinal parts used. The fruit mostly bark a little bit. So the fruit itself, also I could not find apple medicinal properties listed in any of the books that I have. It talked about stuff that it would do, but it didn't list medicinals. So I kind of just did that. But the fruits are really rich in fiber, antioxidants, vitamin C, and polyphenols,
Phenol.
phenols. So it is good for digestion, supports gut bacteria, which I know you are all about. You love upping your gut bacteria.
I do. Good bacteria. Yes,
Yeah.
very important.
Very important. Regulating blood sugar. Research shows that it helps lower your LDL, reduces inflammation, and just kind of supports heart health as well. Now, the apple peel, especially, really high in like the good stuff, high concentrations of antioxidants for the peel, especially. And then it says like flavonoids and a bunch of these. Now, research suggests that these compounds together are anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and potentially anti-cancer. So most of the antioxidants and the other good stuff from the apple are like in the skin or like the skin and right underneath. So eating like the peeled apple, you'll still get some stuff. There's still vitamins, but you're not getting most of like the antioxidants and the other good stuff. You need to eat the skin.
There's still pectin and fiber and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. Which is true of things like kiwi too. Like kiwi, like if
Yeah,
you eat the flesh of the kiwi, it's good, but the skin is where all the good stuff
I
is.
feel like that's the way for a lot of things. Don't
Yeah, I
your
agree.
fruits and vegetables. Eat
Yeah. I
it.
agree.
Especially because those are the darkest parts usually, and it's always the darkest parts that contain those antioxidants. So,
Yes, yeah. That's why like
right.
all vegetables are good, but you want to make sure they're eating like dark leafy green vegetables because those are the highest in iron and antioxidants and all the good stuff.
I always say your diet should be colorful.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're eating like only like bland
Brown
white food,
stuff or like beige.
colorful diet.
Good. Uh, and then leaves. So apple leaves contain antimicrobial compounds, and so there have been stories of using them in like poultices and stuff, but we don't really use them medicinally today too much. But wilted leaves can be toxic if you ingest them because they have like cyanide type compounds. So I would, if you're using the leaves topically, is probably going to be the way to go. Actions for the bark, though, I did find some tonic, febrifuge, potassium, sodium, magnesium, and then iron salts in the bark. I don't know if it's like water soluble or if it needs to be out, if it's alcohol soluble, you'll have to kind of look more into that, but I couldn't really find much. Oh, I did though find in I always forget the author, but the Eden book, the Garden of Eden book.
Mm,
Who's the author of that?
cloth. Is that
Yes,
cloth?
cloth, yes.
Cloth.
Um,
with the
In there, it talk-
kale with it.
yes, yes. And there, which is a big, like, that's probably the most medicinal book, like historically medicinal book that I have. Talks about using rotten apples as a poultice for eye infections. I don't know, that sounds terrible to me, but to each their own, I guess. Like,
Okay.
yeah, maybe don't stick rotten fruit in your eyeball, but
Maybe not.
historically, I don't know. We're not
Maybe
doctors,
maybe
okay?
it's making alcohol, like because
Ah, yeah, could
if
be.
you've got alcohol, I don't know.
I don't
That's the
know.
only thing I can guess is that you're
Yeah.
fermenting it or something.
Yeah, I
So,
don't know. We're not doctors. Don't do what we say.
yeah,
Just pass the information.
okay.
So
Passing on
the seeds, yeah, the seeds also contain the amygdalin, which can release cyanide. So generally, if you swallow like a couple seeds, it's fine. But if you're like mashing the seeds and they're like crushing them and then eating large quantities, be mindful. A lot of fruit seeds can have cyanidic like compounds. So
true.
I don't know. Don't eat the seeds. So then apple cider vinegar, I'm adding this medicinally because it's very common. So traditionally associated with digestion, preservation, antimicrobial, tonic use. And I did find this website that said that modern health claims of apple cider vinegar are often exaggerated online, which I thought was funny, but it's vinegar. So there is going to be like the benefit of the acidity and like the vinegar itself. So apple cider vinegar could be really beneficial. I know that that's like a big thing in a lot of kind of like holistic health
Hurts my
communities.
belly. It hurts my stomach to
Yeah, I used to do like a half
cider
a
or
shot of
something. It
it.
hurts my stomach, something
Yeah.
drunk.
Yeah, I used to do half a shot of it every day, but you kind of have to dilute it because it's really bad for your teeth
It
too.
is. It
So
is.
I would dump it in like an 8 ounce glass of water and then chug it, but ugh, it's not good tasting. And then I do give you a little recipe if you did want to make a little DIY apple cider vinegar. So we'll just kind of run through it quick, but essentially it's a two-step fermentation process where it turns into alcohol and then it turns into vinegar. So I just give you, I'm not going to really walk through this, but if you want it, you can always like pause the video and look, but I'll tell you what you're going to need. And then you ferment for the first time, cut up the apples. You just put your sugar or your honey in the water with the apples, cover and then store it for 2 to 3 weeks. Make sure you're being mindful of like the temperature too. You're gonna stir it every few days or shake it every few days, but make sure that the apples are always submerged. That's the thing, because if they pop out, then you're gonna get mold. So be mindful of that. And then you're gonna strain it, and then you should notice like a cider-like smell. If it smells moldy, toss it. Okay, it should smell kind of alcohol-y, cidery. And then you're going to strain it, and then keep the liquid though. Cover it again. Put it back to store for 3 to 4 additional weeks. And then that's pretty much it. Then again, though, if you're smelling mold, if you're seeing mold, like get rid of it. And then I do also, so I say this here. And then I also say you'll see the mother, right? The mother is like a big thing within fermentation. It's kind of jelly-like. This is the mother. It's packed with all kinds of beneficial bacteria. A lot of people who make what are the drinks?
Kombucha.
Kombucha. They also use like the mother. Any type of vinegar making uses the mother, and you can actually save it and then use it, kind of like you do with a sourdough like
Peel it
starter. You
off.
can
It's
like,
the
yeah,
scoby is what they call
yeah,
it.
yeah, the mother.
Yeah.
Okay, so switching gears a bit, magical stuff. So I did find that apple is often associated with like water because of the like dreaming, healing, fertility, otherworldness, and also earth because of like harvesting traditions, abundance, nourishment. Season I found two. One is going to be harvest. Again, we have the symbolism of like death and rebirth. Um, Avalon, the harvest, and then spring, mostly because of the apple blossoms, fertility, love, things like that. Planet, also too, Venus, because again, love, beauty, sexuality, fertility, and then Jupiter tied to like abundance and wisdom. Astrological signs, I found three. There's a lot of disagreement. But Taurus, because of like the sensuality, earthiness, the pleasure. Libra, because of like harmony, desire, again, like cycles. And then Cancer for like the feminine fruit symbolism. Couldn't find any tarot, but I feel like, I don't know, I could see a few. I know we really mostly, for the most part, stick to the major arcana. Um, I don't know. I could see like the Empress potentially. I feel like that's really mothering. Um, but I could also see maybe like the Hermit for like the darkness and the boundary stuff. Not totally sure about that. Couldn't really find anything for chakras though.
So if you subscribe to the idea that Adam and Eve were being tempted with an apple tree, then maybe the lovers even show an apple tree with the snake.
Yeah. I there were a couple places that said lovers, but a lot of times the lovers was because of, so you and I view the lovers as differently, right? From most people. So if you kind of read the lovers as that like
I
actual
will
like
put a link to the
pairing.
art to my idea of the lovers because I do have like a series that I'm slowly plugging through. Like every
Mm,
once in a while, I'll post a tarot card, and I have one
mhm.
for the lovers and about how we view the lovers differently.
Uh,
I'll put
yeah.
a link to that.
Nice. Yes, link that. But if you do align with like the more traditional interpretation of the lovers card, of like partnership, actual like lovers, that type of stuff, then I could definitely see Apple tied to that. But it doesn't really fit for my interpretation of lovers. But yeah, for like the kind of more commonly accepted interpretation, yeah, I could see that.
Two of Cups.
Also, maybe like the
You
Fool.
want that the connected love, like the
Yeah.
best love card I could pull for me is the Two of Cups. Just saying.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. I agree with that. And I think, yeah, I think Two of Cups could be good. It could potentially also even be, I don't know, the Fool a little bit just because of like starting things, the seeds, planting, that kind of stuff. But the Fool is also kind of silly in a way, right? It's like new, but in a silly way. But if we're talking about
Like yeah,
newness,
it's like jumping into the unknown without any knowledge,
yeah,
which is like
yeah,
different than the idea, even the biblical idea or the
yeah,
mythology of Adam and
yeah,
Eve, of it being the tree
yeah,
of knowledge of
yeah.
good and evil. So it kind of like
So maybe the aces, I think, would be better. Like the
yeah,
aces of like
yeah,
starting new stuff would be good for the
the
abundance
energy.
association. Yeah, I could see that. Okay, so lots of goddesses. Again, I'm mostly focusing on goddesses that had direct relationships to the apple tree, not just like goddesses that are associated with like fertility or whatever. Oh, hold on. This is too big. Okay. So, we have Iðunn, who we talked about, the Garden of the Magical Apples, Hera, the Golden Apples that we mentioned that too, Aphrodite, also connected to the Apple of Discord, which we talked about. Eris, the Golden Apple in like the Judgment of Paris story, talked about that. Atalanta, which is talks about like she's involved in the Golden Apple story. And then Pomona, who I don't think that we talked about her, but Roman goddess associated with orchards, fruit trees, cultivation, but there is a lot of apples. So orchards in general, but a lot of apple orchards specifically. And then Ishtar, which is the Mesopotamian goddess, like associated with gardens, fertility, and fruit-bearing trees, again, mostly apples.
Nice.
So lots of fruit discussions with her, but a lot of apple. So then we have the Ogum letter, which is the quert. This also the apple is like hidden, man. I'm telling you, I had to like dig for apple stuff. There's a lot of apple stuff, but it's not very cohesive and like clear. It's very like I don't. It's almost. It's like a lot of stuff that is tangentially related to Apple, but not directly related. And even this, with the ogum, usually it's pretty easy to find like the meaning of the ogums. But even apple, I had to look into two different books and then like three different websites to actually get a general consensus. But it's like love, faithfulness, rebirth, cycles, and choices. Choices was a big one too that came up. Um, which I could kind of see relating that back to like the stories we talked about. There were a lot of choices that had to be made before somebody would seek out the apples. But yeah, it seems like that's again pretty general, but those are all the things that would come up with it. And then just magically lots of stuff. Love, healing, immortality, fertility, wisdom, protection, divination, connection to otherworld. Lots and lots and lots of stuff. No really like general consensus on anything with the apple. Then we know that the cut apple reveals like the pentagram or the star shape, which I put in here for you just in case
I
you
love
hadn't ever
that
seen that.
included that.
Yes, a beautiful little star. So that can be associated with like the five elements, feminine mysteries, protection, especially if you're looking at a pentacle, like the star plus the round shape around the edge, very pentacle-like. And then, so how can you use it? Offerings, you can cut a slice of it so that the star is showing and put that on like sacred space. You can use the wood for like wands, fires, incense smoking. Wood is healthy, not, it's fine to burn. So you can use like loose incense from the wood if you like, or burn like a branch of the wood. Sacred hearth fires, seeds for, seeds just generally are good for like intention, manifestation, fertility. You're literally planting seeds. Apple cider. Every year I make apple cider. I love apple cider. It's a very like magical process for me, and I like sharing it with women, with the women in my life. So that's kind of just like my thing, but I associate that with the autumn is like the bringing of the autumn and the harvesting and the
I love
bringing together of like feminine forces and feminine energy. And then you can like put your intentions into an apple, eat half, and then bury the other half to like bring your intentions to to fruit, basically. And that's it.
I love
Lots for apple today.
that. I love that. That was, I felt good about that. That was like a good discussion of
Yeah.
apple tree. I love it.
Good.
Thank you so much. That was
Yeah.
really awesome. I hope everybody got a ton from that and enjoyed it as much as I did because I really enjoyed it. And everything that I thought about an apple tree or like had in my mind when you started Apple, like you ended up talking about it. So it was amazing. Yes.
Yeah, good.
I love so, like and subscribe below if you enjoyed our lovely discussion of Apple. And we will see you at the next Ditch Witch Diaries.